start things off, we're going to have Rick come up and give another speech.
That sounds like fun.
You don't need me to stand here and tell you how fast things are percolating all over the metro right now. In nearly every segment. In fact, over the past few months, we brought in over 20 real estate professionals as part of a variety of roundtables that we're doing, not only to prepare for today's event, but also for some content in the annual real estate magazine, which is distributed at everybody's tables today. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end today. But there were some definite themes and questions that kind of arose, and just a couple of those that kind of percolated that I found interesting. Out-of-town investors are taking a liking to Des Moines. That's something that we've been hearing now. We heard talk of the potential for some office spec as well, along with some whispers about the potential for national retailers going downtown, and even some question about whether that would or would not happen. The environment, office design, millennials, the intersection of all those things in planning cities and in development, that was a common theme across all the different industries that we talked to. And another topic, we have over 2,000 units planning to come online just in downtown and multifamily over the next year or so, and potential for more, of course, always. And how that interplay plays out and how that's absorbed and what the impact would be in the suburbs, I think, is another issue that came up in a variety of different ways as we were preparing. The fact is there's going to be way more than we're able to talk about today. And I think that's okay. We're going to try to touch on some of the key issues, and I think we've got the panelists that can do that for you today. With us today, of course, is Rick Tollakson, President and CEO of Hubbell Realty Co. Also, we have Erin Douglas. She's an urban designer with the city of Des Moines. Gerry Neugent, the President and CEO of Knapp Properties. And Jackie Johansen, who's in charge of marketing and acquisition for R&R Equity Partners. And like Carol said, as a reminder, this is a Q&A, so make sure to have your questions ready. I'm going to have a first question to kind of get us started off, maybe a follow-up, and I'll chime in from time to time, but really do want to have your guys' questions coming in from the audience to help drive where we're going today. So to start things off, we're going to have each of the panelists give one trend or an issue or a challenge that we can expect to be dealing with in 2016 and beyond. And why don't we go ahead, Rick, you can have some time to think. And we'll go ahead and start all the way down at the end with Jackie.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. One of the things that we're seeing in this economy is that we're at an all-time high for global investments in commercial real estate. So that's having a ripple effect. So we have our international REITs that are buying in the gateway cities on the coast. So the investors that are usually investing in those cities are going to secondary and tertiary markets like Des Moines. So if you look at sale transactions from today back to January of 2014, we're seeing a strong trend that is 28%, for example, of office sale transactions are by out-of-state or out-of-country buyers. And in the industrial side, we're at 31% of those sales transactions are coming from out of state. And on the land sales side, it's as high as 56% from out of state or out of country investors. So that is coming from this nationwide trend, and we're starting to feel this in Iowa. So that's causing some cap rate compression on the coasts. So you might see cap rates from 4 to 6% on the coast, but here in Des Moines, where we have this strong, stable economy, our average cap rates are more like 6 to 8%. So I really feel like we'll continue to see this trend, and there's definitely pros and cons of that trend that we can talk about later. But that's a strong trend, and I see that continuing over the next year or so.
Gerry?
Okay, I think the biggest issue that faces us as real estate developers is the recognition of maybe societal changes that require us to be responsive and to pivot planning. And for example, you know, online buying and the lifestyle and buying habits of society today, particularly the younger generation, have changed and affect real estate in several ways. One, it changes retail. So, you know, for example, if you designed a retail development that would accommodate big and medium boxes maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, there aren't those types of tenants except maybe around very concentrated retail areas like the mall and the like. So it requires us to change our design on these types of developments to more of a lifestyle center, smaller, commercial, maybe mix in some residential. And that is the key to, I think, success, is being able to be responsive and to recognize those trends. Another way that that change affects is the industrial market. The on-time delivery, the online sales have really changed the distribution and warehousing needs of the United States. And we're seeing it here. We've had a real boom in industrial properties, and it's quite frankly a result of these societal changes. So our challenge and our issue is to recognize these types of things and hopefully respond correctly.
Erin?
One of the trends that I think has become much more pronounced in my time with the city, which is approaching 10 years now, is the embracing and recognition of increasing value of urbanity. And I think this is happening in a number of ways. We've recognized that having an active, vibrant urban core is an imperative as a competitive advantage for the region at large. We have begun valuing our limited land resources higher than previous times. So we're seeing increased density. We're seeing infill on sites. We're seeing projects come in at places where we might not used to have seen them. And I'm thinking of some projects that Hubbell has done recently in downtown. It's working on in downtown on not large sites where you can put in 500 housing units, but you're looking at 75 or 80. And they are not 2 stories, but 5, 6, 7 stories. So we're seeing some of that density and infill bringing higher values to our land areas as a limited resource. We're continuing a tradition of building with quality. So as Des Moines has had over, ever since its creation, we have a tradition of building with quality. So if you look at some of the buildings at Drake, if you look at some of the buildings along the riverfront, those are really high quality buildings. And we have seen increased investment in some of those places. So for example, a principal right now is reinvesting in their already quality building stock to the tune of $250 million without building a new building. They are reinventing their corporate headquarters, bringing higher value to their existing building stock. We see Come and Go in their Crafts Gateway Center really investing in a quality building along Gateway Park. And then walkability. So that's become I think a real touch point in downtown in particular, where it's a popular planning term, so I'm excited about it. But honestly, it's coming at us from corporate leaders. So as Crafts Gateway Center is coming online, they are wanting to do some things that really increase the ability for that workforce to be able to come and go. Part of that was not to nearby restaurants, to Gateway Park, to the other amenities that downtown has to offer, and potentially as a housing location for some of that workforce. So, like I said, I come at economic development by way of architecture, planning, and urban design. So I'm obviously very excited about this trend towards greater urbanity here locally. And it's obviously good for the city, the entity that I work for. But I also think it's really, really good for the region, that having a truly urban center with an 18-hour downtown where millennials want to live, where even people with families want to live, offers a competitive advantage as we try to attract quality workforce to this region.
Great.
Well, I probably should address housing a little bit because we're in that industry, so we can see what kind of trends. Yes, there's a big boom going on in downtown, and yes, we all have huge waiting lists of people. I get nervous a little bit. We may have the same, 300 or 400 people on every waiting list. So we're going to find out because we're going to be delivering in the next year and a half or so, 1,200 plus units. And we're going to find out in all price points, in all categories, and we're going to see just how strong downtown is. Because at the same time, the suburbs are also adding a large number of units, especially around Jordan Creek Mall. A lot of out-of-town developers building a lot of product over there. Occupancies around the whole metro area is still staying very strong. You know, I think we looked at our portfolio, we're at 97%. On a portfolio of around 4,000 units. That's a pretty high percentage. We're feeling pretty good. But we see what's happening out there. We're starting to see a little more concessions having to be given, a lot more competition because everyone keeps adding units, okay? A lot of them. And then we're going to see downtown, never seen 1,200 units happen within the same probably 12-month period. And we're going to see it happening downtown. I think we can absorb them all. We're counting on it. Believe me, we're counting on it. At the same time, you look at single-family housing, you probably read the paper. If you have an existing home, now's a great time to sell because, yeah, I mean, you're getting multiple offers in your home. You can sell your home within a week. New homes, since the middle of January, we've been selling over a home a day. Okay? People are buying homes. A lot of these people that are renting homes, you know, first-time home buyers, they're renting homes, they're buying homes. They're moving in apartments that are buying homes. We're seeing that trend. It's a lot of velocity out there in housing, period. Everybody asks me, where do all these people come from? Well, we're hiring them. I mean, we have a great employment base here. And as employment growth continues, we're going to keep fighting. We need housing, downtown housing, suburban housing, everything. And we're in a high growth industry.
At this time, I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and open it up for questions from the audience. Who has the first question?
Jackie, you mentioned outside buyers coming to the market. Has technology played a role in any of that? And you can all obviously answer that question as well.
Well, technology is definitely something that's important both in office buildings and industrial buildings, and investors look at that as they're looking at new developments as well as second generation space and the type of tenants that will come there, the type of tenant improvements that they might have to put their investment dollars into. But a big part of the investment and the way these REITs and these other investors are making their decision is really simply they're looking at the pro forma, they're looking at the cap rates, they're looking at the quality of the city. Can this city attract tenants to fill those buildings, whether it's multifamily, whether it's office, industrial? And I think Des Moines has a list about an arm long of different accolades of attracting millennials and keeping baby boomers, and is a really fantastic city and has a lot of initiatives for businesses to grow their business, expand their business, and new businesses to come to town when it comes to incentives. So that's what I believe, that yes, technology plays a role, but maybe not the primary role in that investment decision.
Jackie, you don't blame Jay Byers and all those awards the city of Des Moines wins, all those tweeting he does. I think, you know, single-handedly, he may have put us on board so every out-of-town investor thinks they got to come to Des Moines and get part of the action. Just an observation.
Jackie, you talked about, we had our pre-event meeting about our proximity, obviously 80-35, and the abundance of land. And you kind of touched on what some of the things that outside investors were finding attractive about this area. I wonder if you could touch a little bit about those areas.
Absolutely. Well, that is one of the things that we do have here is land. And we have lots of interstate access. So that's something, especially on the industrial side, but also on the office side. Employees want to get to work easily, whether it be downtown or whether it be out in the suburbs. They want to be able to get quick access, get in their parking lots. So that's something that, whether it be a tenant or an owner-occupant or an investor, they're looking at those kinds of things. So we have plenty of available land, we have plenty of interstate access, and because we can quickly get from the industrial side on the distribution center side, this hub and spoke mentality. One, it gets millennials the things that they're looking for. They want to go on Amazon and get something within 2 to 3 business days. So these distribution centers are having to deal with that. The other side of that is you have an issue with employees and on the truck driver side that are dealing with moving the product across Iowa for these distribution centers. We can start attracting those kinds of centers by having more truck drivers, because there's a nationwide shortage of over 50,000 truck drivers across this nation, and Iowa is feeling this as well. Those truck drivers, they want to be at home at night. So how do we do that? Well, we have more hubs, hopefully in Des Moines, that can reach Kansas City and St. Louis and Chicago and Omaha and some of these other metro areas right from our 3580 cross section.
Any other thoughts from the panel about the out-of-state interest in taking a look at Des Moines?
Well, I think that there is a lot of capital out there, and on the bigger areas, on the coast, and I think the cap rates are so compressed that it has forced people to look beyond, just the primary markets to the secondary and tertiary markets. And also, we have told a great story about our stability. Even in 2008, our vacancy rates were manageable, and our rents did not get overly compressed. So the stability and the fact that people are looking beyond their backyard for investments has served Des Moines well.
And I think to what both Rick and Gerry had to say about the word getting out, I think as people look around and come here and see what we have to offer, I think there really is truth to that quality of life that people hear about. They're looking for the value, and then they come here and experience it, and experience that I know Rick knows everybody out here, and there's sort of we're sort of the biggest small town out there, and so I think we do tend to make that progress an easier one to navigate, and people like that. People like that kind of ease of access to Jay or Gerry or Erin or whoever the case might be.
Obviously, with outside investors taking a look, there's going to be some impacts or challenges or potential opportunities here. I'm curious what some of those challenges might be.
Well, if you're a seller, the challenges are how high can you raise your price? But otherwise, it just makes for a healthier market, obviously, if there's more people interested.
I think it's an opportunity, honestly. From the developers that we see come through the door, they're bringing some new ideas. We have a great a stock of developers, a great set of projects and investments in our city, and the new, fresh ideas only strengthen that. So they challenge us internally to look at additional aspects to what our products bring to the market. So I think we're seeing a higher level of competition in the amenity packages that multifamily housing bring, in part because of some of those outside developers. So we're seeing, and part of it is our outside developers getting out to some of these other cities and seeing what some of our competitor developers in the Midwest are looking at. So we're seeing, the fire pits, the pet amenities, the workout areas, the rooftops, just a lot of the amenity packages, higher levels of sustainability that some renters, tenants are looking for.
More questions from the audience? Right down here.
No microphones.
I don't think I need a microphone.
No microphones.
Seems like all that you recommend.
No microphones.
Right? The key to growth is workforce. And obviously part of what we do is we stay in touch with employers. What comments are we getting back today from employers about their ability to fill the slots they need to grow and prosper? Do we have a shortfall? Do we have enough workforce? Do we need to attract more workforce? But certainly that's a key element in our growth.
I think if I could, to give a shout out to the partnership, that's one of the top priorities of the partnership. And we have worked with the Brookings Institution for immigration, to attract legal immigration, to build our workforce, and the like. We work with the universities, DMAC, to get certificate programs and training. And with the partnership taking the lead on that, it does have the employers as well as the educational institution and the like. So it is really, I think, communicated to the employers as well as any type of initiative could be. So I'd say that we are, as a community and the Greater Des Moines Partnership, very focused on workforce development, attracting and retaining workers here.
One of the things that came up on our office roundtable was about, of course, using the workforce to retain and attract people. With Come and Go making the investment that they're making, which is obviously a world-class design and principle to put in the investment in, I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit about what you're seeing in office spaces as it comes to using that as a tool for retention and attraction.
Well, I definitely see companies and looking at their office space as a way to attract and retain. So if they're looking to move from where they're at to a new location, it absolutely has to be maybe a flagship or something that can really help retain and attract employees. And the space itself looks different. So you have more community areas, you have smaller square footage per person, but overall the company has about the same amount of square footage. So as Erin was mentioning, they've got amenities, they're allowing people different work hours. They want to work early and late, but not maybe in the middle of the day, so you're seeing some of these. But in the actual office space, we're seeing everything from single-story office being completely converted into beautiful office space, as well as space downtown in the towers being converted. So it's being used to attract.
We see the same thing. We just are in the process of adding about 30% more space onto our office building, and we've had to change our interior design considerably to kind of meet the demands of this next generation. They like a lot more collaborative space. They like a lot more natural light, and they the old kind of high cube things, those are down. They want it wide open. There's a lot more benching concepts. A lot more smaller conference rooms. They want to have smaller gatherings. They can get out, use a personal phone call, come back again. Flexibility and just how you have that whole environment changes dramatically.
I think there's also an interest to kind of transition this in folks getting out of that workspace for a short amount of time, but getting out of that workspace. And I think in our pre-discussion, Jackie, you noted that there's kind of two conversations going on. Is it one of employees getting out and walking around and being in the city, or is it one of having access to conveniences? From where I sit, I'd like to think that can be both and in a downtown setting, and Gerry's helping to make that happen by bringing us a grocery store in downtown. But I think there is kind of two parallel conversations going on as people look at their office and workforce location decisions.
Are you seeing a project like Come and Go in principle then when you're talking with potential office tenants? Are they looking at those and saying, I want to try to do something like that? Is that helping raise the profile of what they're trying to do?
Yes, everybody is saying, I want to build that signature Krause Gateway Center. That's what I want you all to believe.
Everybody wants a Renzo piano.
Everybody wants a Renzo piano. Yes and no. I think there is that competition for a workforce. So I think economic development kind of goes in these cycles, and it's a chicken and egg. And right now, we're in a cycle where we are really clamoring for that quality workforce. And so employers are having to do different things to make sure that they can attract the best and the brightest from really around the country. And if that means quality collaborative workspace, that's what places are doing, and they're doing it in their own fashion, be it through an iconic Renzo piano building, or through remodeling a historic building, or through new build office space that offers some of those types of amenities. But I think we're in that cycle where we are really having to work hard to find that employee base.
More questions from the audience? We can go right down in here.
Good morning. I'd be interested to hear from each of you what's missing. What do great cities have that we don't have and should be top of our list to be working toward getting? If I can start the list with a 50-meter pool.
And we're going to have that 50-meter pool. I believe that's going to start construction probably this summer, Daryl, as you well know. So we're close to getting that. Still need a little help from all of you to make that happen. I think we just saw some recent stories. I was at a meeting yesterday with the president of the University of Iowa, Hilton, and I think one thing Des Moines doesn't have is a major urban university. I mean, I think we're the second largest city in the United States without a university. And to the extent that that can be accomplished in Des Moines, it can be huge. It can really be that next step forward. Of course, Tiva's going to say if we really have a water park downtown and get rid of the dams, that probably is going to be the next thing.
I agree with both of those. But I'm going to add transit to the mix. Yes, we have a healthy DART system, but I do believe that a more robust transit system is really one of those things that we need to elevate our game in the region.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that the initiatives that, with the waterways that Rick's chairing, and if we can get the regional center in downtown Des Moines, or in Des Moines, it's going to be a real boon for employers and attracting workforce and the like. But the key is finding the finances and the funding for these things. So call your legislatures and support the local option sales tax.
And I'll echo all of that and then add another idea that's probably not quite so sexy, which is a intermodal facility that helps move product, helps attract customers. Right now, 83% of the products that travel across Iowa are via truck and only 3% are by rail. So we can really change the face of that industrial office, the attracting employees, by having some intermodal facility, which the NPO is working on, of course.
Just to touch on the Regents University downtown, in the business record this past week, Terry Beeman had a story that was kind of talking about that. They're doing a study on that. So shameless plug for us, I guess. But it's a good story to take a read at and see what they're kind of thinking on that line. So.
Well, I have a mom voice, I'm probably okay. Obviously didn't mean think alike, that was my question, but I'll do a follow-up. It's to say, we all understand attracting the workforce is going to impact everybody. It will rows out our boats, or if we don't do it, we're all in big, big trouble. Because housing, office, business, retail, industrial, so all good ideas. What's your one step you'd like to do? You've got a whole room full of expertise here. What's the one step, each of you for your things, ask from these people to get one step closer to your one thing?
Well, when it really comes to workforce, Chris, and what I've noticed is it's not only attracting workers from the outside, we have a lot of what I would say underutilized workforce. And we have people, when I look at the building trades, and the younger people, they don't have those mechanical skills. They don't teach shop anymore in school. They don't have that skills. We need to get them. So they can't all be Walmart and McDonald's workers. We need them in the trades. We need them to teach these skills. And we need to get that back in the junior high and high school levels. We're going to have to figure out how to get that there so they have an interest and we can use them. We have a major shortage in construction trades, and it affects, probably more than anything, our schedule today. We just cannot get the work done. I mean, It's not about price, we just don't have the people. And it's a nationwide problem, but right here in Iowa, when I go and visit these high schools, I know that there's kids that we can train and we can get them into the trades.
You talked about your conversation about welders with Mid-American.
Mid-American Energy, 75% of their welders are 57 years old and older. So within the next year, 8 years, between now and retirement age, 75% of their workforce is gone, and they have to get welders. And these are jobs that pay, close to $100,000 a year. And Bill Furman and I were down at Central Academy meeting with teachers. How can we get to these kids, junior high and high school age, and say, listen, you can be a welder. You can make really good money if you have that skill set.
Other thoughts on back to the initial question?
The next step. I think I don't want to call them little things, but some of the really thoughtful things as we implement incremental development. So creating those walkable areas, creating those places that are built with durability, quality, lasting value, bringing some uniqueness to the development that we bring in, adding retail space where it makes sense, such that there's truly a vibrancy at the ground floor, at the sidewalk level where people are at. I mean, if you think about these 2,000 housing units that are coming on, that's the population of a lot of small towns in Iowa. And those small towns all have several restaurants nearby. They all have those pharmacy types of convenience areas. And so, while downtown hasn't recently been a hotbed of retail activity, there's a level of service that will simply be demanded by this new population that will be coming in. And so having the kind of forward thinking to include that in some of our developments, I think really makes sense. And then, I think we're about to embark on a community conversation, to the water trails point, to the transit point, to the pool point, that we are going to be looking, I think, as a community at some of these next big things. And so as a community, we need to make decisions due to the funding constraints, the realities of what it is that we should get behind. Is it the water trails? Is that the piece that will really elevate downtown? What are those 2 or 3 big things that I think our community needs and can support?
Well, and I think to add to that is good planning. Traditionally zoning is very rigid, very structured, and we need to have zoning that matches in rules and regulations that will allow walkability. It's not just about more parking on the street or bike lanes. It's also land uses and mixes. Des Moines, like Central Iowa, very, very segregated commercial as opposed to the historic old cities that have corner stores. But we've traditionally wanted to segregate commercial uses from residential uses, and I think that planning has to change to where we're bringing services to the neighborhoods where the people are living. And we have that opportunity downtown, which is being accomplished, but it applies in suburban areas as well, and in areas that give the people the opportunity to actually be in a walkable community.
We're working on that.
Setbacks. Oh,
We're rewriting our zoning code the next year and a half. We're rewriting our zoning code.
I'll just add to that Iowa Workforce Development and Director Townsend and her team are working hard on this issue of retiring, the aging out of so many of the different categories. And she spoke yesterday at a Future Ready Iowa event where she commented that the 2 categories of one being educators and the second being utility workers are at the highest % of their upcoming workforce aging out. So we have the people and we have the jobs, but the skill sets don't necessarily match up. So that has a lot of focus also from Iowa Economic Development Authority. So maybe the ask is to reach out to those groups and ask, how can we help? How can we take our collaborative city that works really well together and put that to work by finding a way to match up these skill sets and starting to talk early to high school students and making sure that the next generation has a really good plan in advance.
Question right down here in front.
Gerry, you just spoke on exactly what I wanted to ask, and I'd like to share it across the panel, is as there are many city representatives in the room, what are 2 to 3 of those things that when we're looking at comp plan review or zoning review that you'd like to see done for the future, for your individual areas or just future growth of our communities?
My personal, if I go first, personally, I think it's the strength to allow uses to be intermingled and not to create a mixed use where we have one building that has apartments on top of an office or retail, but actually to mix in uses and oftentimes if it's an existing neighborhood, there is a political will that's needed when you have a lot of neighbors objecting about not wanting the retail area, for example, in their area. But that, to me, is the real key. It's to have a plan and a political will that people are on notice that there is going to be interspersed with residential development, maybe some service, commercial, and the like.
Rick, you talked about the little experiment you did in Des Moines, and I'm curious if you'd be able to share some of that.
I'm on the Des Moines comp plan with Erin, so one of the things that I'm really interested in is infill. So I took a project. I had our Joe Petrozinski from Land Development, Andrew Hubbell, said, okay, let's take the piece of property and see just how easy it is to figure out an infill piece. Okay, existing neighborhood, existing homes are probably $150,000. We're going to be looking at doing ranch-style townhomes, twin homes. At 200,000 and above. Okay, whole process only took us about 2 years. The rules to develop that, infrastructure rules, building code rules, we just burden the project down to the point it can't happen. Yet Des Moines as a city has to figure this out. You know, if they could get an appreciation of their residential real estate up 1 or 2% a year, okay, they wouldn't have a budget problem. It's going the other way. It's depreciating in value. Okay, they can't sustain that. They have to figure it out. We have to come up with a streamlined process to allow infill housing to happen or commercial development within this. It has to become easier. No developer wants to go in and get beat up by the entire neighborhood. One of the number one arguments they had for us, your homes are too expensive, they will increase the assessed valuation of our homes and our taxes will go up. Yeah, I didn't find it very funny, okay? I found it very disheartening, and we know we have to change it. And Erin and I have talked about it. She agrees. We're going to have to figure out a way to make this process easier because we have a problem. It's hitting Des Moines first. It's going to hit the rest of the metro area over time. We got to figure out how to handle infill.
When there's that rub happening, right? The community or the people in the neighborhoods, and they're seeing a project. Where's the? I wonder if there's some strategies or some ways that you think to help soften that process.
Solve this.
Just solve it first.
We're doing exactly what Gerry's talking about. So we are doing, we're updating our comprehensive plan and we're rewriting our zoning code. So our zoning code hasn't been rewritten, and there's probably somebody in here who knows the exact year, but it's something like since the 1950s, and we've had 90 or some obnoxious number of amendments to it. So there are about 3 people in the city of Des Moines who can navigate that zoning code, which is not helpful to Rick or Gerry or Jackie or the neighborhood, frankly. So it's kind of a free-for-all for what everybody expects to happen. And so we're working on that plan, on both of those planning exercises. Our comprehensive plan is nearly complete, and our zoning code is in process. The goal with the zoning code is to find those areas where these increased densities are desirable, such that they can happen by right. Not that you don't have to go out and talk to the neighborhood, but such that the neighborhood understands what the expectations are for those areas in advance, prior to a developer showing up with their plan. So that is the end game with the work that we've had underway for the last 18 months, and will have ongoing through our zoning code for the next 18 months.
I want to go back to the original question, some of the other thoughts on anything else that the cities could be doing to help out you guys.
Speed of review. More tax abatement.
That's an open-ended question.
Yeah. Oh, one more down in front.
Good morning. Just a quick question. As we all know, commercial real estate ebbs and flows, and the great news is we're on the high side right now, and so everything is very optimistic. Everybody's smiling and nodding, and everybody's making money, which is a good thing. I would just like to ask the panel, as it relates to commercial real estate, as it sits today, what is the number one risk that's out there that potentially all of us should have on our radar screen? And we don't need a litany of information, just one or two tidbits that we should all be watching. Thank you.
You want to take first crack?
Well, the number one thing I look at is job growth. I mean, that's just, we've been fortunate, okay, we've had a lot of good job growth, and it's the number one thing that drives our economy. We have low unemployment and job growth, but with low unemployment also means we got to figure out how to attract that workforce. It has to be job growth for us.
I would add to that the economy in general. The investment, the capital markets will change as the stock markets and the bond markets continue to improve. Recently was listening to an economist out of Texas that talked about us being in the 7th inning for a baseball reference. So we've still got room to run, but we need to be watching carefully at these other markets, especially when you've got international markets that are a little bit falsely inflated because of government involvement in those stocks and bond markets. So we need to be careful about watching those kinds of things, because that can trigger the sales of some of these investments that are coming in from out of state, and that exit strategy becomes part of a potential issue or opportunity.
Yeah, and I would say that to add on to what Jackie said, that the recovery has been going on a long time, and the question is how long will it last? And so to be defensive, assuming the recovery ends and we get to another recession, the key is, I think, long-term financing and not over-leveraging, because when it comes time to refinance, if we're in a recession and if vacancy creeps up, you have not necessarily, it doesn't appear we have rate risk, but you will have liquidity risk as far as finding enough funds to refinance if we have a recession where there's vacancy. So we're looking, as I mentioned in the blurb we wrote, to get as much term as we can on our loans, so that if we get into a recession, we won't be faced with refinancing.
Are you guys seeing any of the perhaps maybe some of the not best practices that were happening leading up to the real estate collapse, or anything that you're seeing that are some behaviors that might lead down a riskier path?
I think we're all seeing some of the lenders out there are equally as aggressive now as they were before. Some of the borrowers that I've seen that I would have thought would have been very difficult for them to borrow the kind of money they're borrowing for projects, they're getting the money. There is a strong kind of an oversupply of money. It is seeking places to lend money to. And certain lenders, I think, are much more aggressive than they should be. And we all suffer that. I mean, because if those borrowers fail, it impacts all of us. I had to compete with a number of foreclosed projects I didn't want to compete with, okay? Because lenders lent those people money, those borrowers money they shouldn't have. And I'm starting to see some of that activity happen again.
And we're seeing prices, on raw land and the like, increase dramatically, which is a result of the easy credit, which easy credit is very important to commercial real estate, of course. But I would agree with Rick. The credit is much freer as far as level, and I think a lot of people in chasing rate go short term. And I think that's a mixture of high leverage and short term debt can be a prescription for injury later.
You talked a little bit about the land, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the effects of if land that is going at a higher value, what some of those impacts could be later on down the line.
Selling, of course, but I think what it does is it adds a lot of costs. Like if I'm thinking of acquiring property for residential development, and it adds a lot of money to the cost of the lot, which adds a lot of inflation to the housing market. Which, if you have an existing house like the neighbors Rick were talking about, it's good if you get appreciation. But I think it just fuels kind of a housing inflationary thing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it encourages sprawl to some extent
Yeah.
too, that people push further out to find that less expensive land or find land that they're accustomed to working with within their performance or their budgets. And it's honestly one of the quality of life aspects that we have going for us, is that we have grown in a fairly contiguous way, in a fairly compact way, which has allowed our commute times to stay relatively short, and our supply of infrastructure and schools to remain relatively efficient.
I would say land price is also being impacted by these out-of-state and out-of-country investors, because the price of an asset or of land here in Des Moines looks pretty fantastic if you're coming from California or from Cincinnati or from some of these other metros, even though it's on the high side. So they're maybe driving up the expectation of the landowners and driving up the price of land, as well as some of the assets.
Rick, from the housing side, Gerry was kind of touching on it with home prices, of course, for developing land. What are you thinking you're going to see on that side?
Well, we've seen land prices continue to go up. And as we talked about it, if lenders are going to lend some of these borrowers money, okay, and if they're going to give them, not require a large amount of equity in them, that just raises that overall price. It makes affordability an issue. There's only so many buyers of $500,000 homes or $400,000 homes, and what happens is it just chokes it. Okay, so we have an affordability issue as well. Right now, as interest rates have been so low, we haven't seen it. How long is that going to continue? So the increased inputs, we know construction labor is going up because we have a shortage of labor. We know construction costs are going up. Okay, and now land's going up at even a higher rate. And we're gonna have an issue if it gets out of control.
We haven't seen it so much, with few exceptions, in Des Moines or in downtown, but it means they show up at our door asking for, looking for incentives, which is hard for the city in long-term finance sense to offer those incentives to overcome some of those land costs.
A question right down here in front here.
Just another quick question about the affordability issue, Rick and panel. How close are we to that housing affordability negatively impacting our ability to attract this workforce that we're talking about?
Well, the problem, as you well know, because it's in your world, it's having an impact. Because if we want a good, stable workforce, one of the basic essentials is they need to have good quality housing, and we can see it as we tour the metro area that you know, the poverty level, the number of people working at a what I call sub-living wage, it has grown dramatically, and we're going to have to address that issue. And it's difficult, as you well know. Not only just affordability, a lot of people don't want, quote, those people in my neighborhood. I mean, they're already there. I mean, they just don't realize it. We have to address it.
One of the things that we had going for us during the recession was we still had developers who were interested in building multifamily in downtown. And you know, there are different pockets of affordable, certainly to talk about here, but we had a number of multifamily housing developments built with the state's low-income housing tax credits. So that was 08, 09, 10-ish. So that's 6 to 8. They're 6 to 8 years old. I don't recall the exact timing at which they roll off their affordability period, but I think it really is something that we have to be watching. That those low-income housing tax credit projects are for those entry-level employees into those entry-level positions at our downtown corporations. And we need to have those housing units available. So we need to be watching as the affordability period rolls off of some of those projects and making sure that we have developers who are seeking those and a state system that recognizes that we need to have them in downtown Des Moines.
Rick, are you guys doing some affordable housing in place at the moment, or anything in the works?
No. Really, Des Moines got very few affordable housing projects. It's mostly going to rural Iowa. And what few have are really tied to nonprofits. It's an issue. I mean, it has really dropped dramatically. I don't think you have to worry too much about them rolling off. Most of us competed in those projects, I think, 50 years, Chris. So,
okay.
So we have to, but there aren't enough of them. I mean, there is a much greater demand for affordable housing than we have. And we just don't see it. I mean, you go to your school districts and you meet with those teachers, Des Moines School District, what's the 60-70% of the students, you know, are on free and reduced lunch. I mean, there is a large poverty issue, okay, which translates into a housing issue in our community.
More questions from the audience? We got one right in the back, and Catherine, you get to the mic.
What would you guys say is the next geographical area of commercial development or redevelopment surrounding downtown?
I think there are a number of opportunities surrounding downtown. You can pretty much, you know, go around the clock, starting, you know, at the north. There are large surface parking lots north of the principal campus, between principal campus and 235 Methodist Hospital, that I think are certainly development appropriate areas. And if you rotate around clockwise, the area around the new convention hotel, which there's another contingent of folks that we expect to see in downtown. So not just the new 3,500 residents, but new visitors to those 330 hotel rooms and hopefully more NCAA events. But there are a number of redevelopment opportunities around that convention hotel that will serve to better connect the tourist visitors to the event center, the convention area, to other areas of downtown. And again, some of those are more infill scale. The parking lots north of Principal are a large block-sized redevelopment potential areas, but some of them around the convention center are smaller. And then if you head east, Hubbell is filling one of those with the Bridge District. That's certainly an area. And then what we have called the market district, and this has been a plan that's been out there for 6 to 8 years. Basically, the city of Des Moines needs to get out of the way. We sit on 6 blocks with our public works facility that is questionable as to whether that's the highest or best use today, tomorrow, 3 years from now. And then I think as you go south, even from there, I think there's some areas south of the new Martin Luther King Parkway that have potential for redevelopment as you kind of hit the confluence of the river. And then to the south, we did a 2 Rivers District plan a number of years ago. This is also still south of the river, and we're seeing quite a bit of multifamily go into that area with Jackson Crossing, with the Beachy Flats. So a number of housing units currently going in there that will be looking for services again, where services don't readily exist. Graziano's is there, B&B grocer. And then as you come up again back towards downtown, I think that whole Gray's Landing area has a lot of development potential. There's, again, Hubbell's looking at a portion of that, and then back up into the area kind of south of Western Gateway. There's a number of, again, infill type of sites, but I think there are still a few sites around the Gateway area that are ripe for redevelopment. And then heading up again to the north of Gateway, kind of between Gateway Park and Sherman Hill. Come and Go has acquired and assembled a few of those in that area. Not all of them, though. I think there are still some development, redevelopment potential in that area. So I really think, kind of find your preferred amenity location, and each of these has kind of a different character that has the potential to redevelop. And then I'm also going to make a plug for areas a little bit further afield from downtown, and I think there are some neighborhoods kind of just to the south and east of downtown, as well as to the north and east of downtown, that we've really been looking at as trying to reinvest in, to create those kind of, let's say, neighborhoods where some of the apartment dwellers in downtown can find those trendy neighborhoods. As a city, as a metro area, we don't necessarily have those kind of vibrant urban neighborhoods. I'm thinking of like a Beaverdale, where people can buy that starter home and have that walkable area, that mixed use neighborhood. And I think some of those neighborhoods, if we can get a healthy contingent of folks in there, can really recreate and re-enliven some of those areas without displacing those who've lived there for a long period of time.
I talked about, we talked at the pre-event meeting about, you've got Prairie Trail and the Altoona Outlet Mall and the Waukee Kettlestone Project and everything going on in downtown. And are there going to be some other larger developments that are happening as well? Or I think Ricky made the comment more of that infill being the way that we see things going.
Yeah, I think the opportunity, there's going to be a huge amount of opportunities on the infill side because of that walkability issue and wanting to be that sense of community. But those other areas are going to grow too, and there's a lot of them, and they're just starting to see the impacts. I mean, the Prairie Trail project, it's a huge project. It has a lot of activity already. It's also maybe halfway through. I mean, it has a lot of land left to develop yet.
And I think as far as downtown goes, I think the East Market area, really is going to be an opportunity, because we have a $137 million federal courthouse that would most likely be located in that area, which is really going to, first of all, it's a huge construction project, but it will spur commercial development around offices and restaurants and the like. So.
Yeah, about time for one more question, then I've got a few follow-up to end us up today. So go right down here. Catherine? Oh, just kidding.
I'm just.
Anybody else have a final question here in the audience? If not, last chance. All right, so what I'm going to do is, one of the things we always like to do is, there's a number of topics we haven't talked about. So I'm curious if there's something we haven't talked about yet that, in hearing what we've been talking about, that you'd like to share with the audience at this point.
Commercial real estate, and this kind of goes back to what Bob Andewig was saying about Urbandale with the number of school districts and the number of counties and the like. And one of the challenges as commercial real estate developers is dealing with geopolitical boundaries. You know, West Moines now in 4 counties, Urbandale's in 2, Clive's in 2. And you know, things change. I mean, whether it's not like moving across the street. And a great example of that was when, you know, Mercy and Methodist were both building hospitals out west, and Methodist happened to be 600 feet west of the border, and the state would not allow them to build. And these kind of these boundaries of school districts that, when they were established, have not followed the municipal growth, and so it's a real issue. And with that being pointed out, I do think that the cities generally have a very high level of collaboration, cooperation, and as citizens and developers, that's important to maintain. So groups like the Central Iowa Taxpayers Association, working with the mayors and the various city councils to collaborate and promote development amongst the cities, and not be worried just because where the school district boundary or the city boundary is. So I think that's very important.
And I'll tag along with that, Chris. Being involved in the water trails, we need 150 miles of creeks and rivers, and we've been meeting, you know, with all these different districts. This is a regional issue, and we're not going to solve it one city. You know, the Des Moines River and the Rapid River confluences in Des Moines. It all comes from someplace else. You know, I don't know whose trees they are that keep flowing down the river. They're probably not, but they deposit in Des Moines right there next to Mullets. And we have to solve this problem. And we talk about it, you know, the bike trail systems along with the rivers, the water trails. This is a regional issue. The funding and the maintenance and all that for all this has to be handled regionally. And we're going to have to come together to solve it regionally. The MPO is a perfect vehicle to make a lot of that happen. They're already dealing with the metro on a regional basis. Capital Crossroads is another regional planning effort that also addresses this. So we're making progress. We just got to keep going after it.
Erin or Jackie, something we haven't talked about today that you think we should?
Yes, I would say we've touched on it, this trend of some of the companies in town building their own buildings or expanding their existing campuses, and that's something that we're definitely seeing. As the brokers in the room have done a great job of filling up existing office and industrial space, we're seeing more that when somebody comes to town and says, I want 50 or 60,000 square feet, there's not a whole lot of existing ready-to-go options, whether you talk about downtown or the suburbs. So now we're starting to see some of that speculative building, both in the industrial and in the office. So in West Des Moines, there was a 30,000 square foot spec building built, and it's full. R&R is coming up out of the ground with a 75,000 square foot. Part of that is already spoken for. So the same on the industrial side. So this issue, and it can be an issue if companies want to come to town and they want existing space and they'd like to be in 6 to 8 months. That's something that's a trend that I think we'll continue to see slowly but surely as demand calls for.
We touched a little bit on education from a workforce perspective, and I guess I would touch on it from more of the quality of life perspective. That I think it's something that we all need to pay attention to in terms of how it impacts the competitive advantage that our region has and various localities have. So I think it's a issue that the state has had a strength in, has a legacy in, but more recently has had some struggles in, frankly. And most specifically in Des Moines, we think it's and have been working more closely with the schools over the last several years, and it tends to be more of a marketing and perception issue that there really are some unique strengths that the Des Moines School District has that we need to continue to bolster, and we ourselves need to be more educated, I think, about how the quality of those schools is going, invest ourselves in increasing that quality and being spokespeople for that quality, and understanding how that impacts the real estate that goes along, the real estate decision-making that goes along with the education offerings.
I know Rick, you've been involved with the schools in Des Moines on some of the things there. When it comes to housing in Des Moines, is that one of the biggest questions people have, is the perception of the schools for Des Moines?
You know, I think it's one of the issues. You know, it could be a city issue, it could be a school district issue. We're not really sure. I mean, we've been working closely with the city and the school district to see what we can do to attract both city workers and school district workers to live in the school district and the city. And you know, why aren't they? You know, why aren't all the firemen living in the city of Des Moines? You know, and all the police officers living in the city of Des Moines? Why don't all the Des Moines teachers live in the city of Des Moines? I don't have an answer for it. We're hoping it has a lot to do with marketing, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to be able to market to those groups and figure out what are the issues.
Well, I'm going to give the panelists a few minutes to think here. We're just about out of time. I'm going to ask them to give a final thought to wrap things up. Before I do that, I do want to share a couple things with you to take home. Usually when I'm at the end of this event, and all our events, I kind of have this list of questions I never get to. And I got that again. I've got like 6 pages of questions. And I usually feel a bit frustrated because we can't get it to all. I can't share with all of you what we talked about in the pre-event meeting and all the people we talked to. On everybody's table today is the annual real estate magazine. It's a brand new product for us. It's absolutely great. There's a number of articles in there. We brought in experts and hosted 4 different video roundtables. All of those conversations, we had our senior staff writer, Kent Dar, moderate those discussions. And so we were able to drill into the office market, the land market, retail, and the industrial market as well. In all those situations, we're able to drill down much farther than we're able to get to on the surface level today on a lot of these topics. So I encourage you to take a look in there. Not only do we have those stories, we also have trends, 11 trends from people that I've seen here today that contributed those in as well. We have the market facts from Hubbell in there, broker profiles, and of course land and sale listings all over the metro. It's a real great product, and I'd also encourage you to go to businessrecord.com/AREM. Again, that's businessrecord.com/AREM. We've got videos of all those conversations as well. All 4 of those roundtables will be out there and available if you want to get in and get a little bit deeper dive into a specific segment that you're interested in. The other thing that we have is that we've got a couple coming out of our event today. We'll have Kent Dar, who puts together our Commercial Real Estate Weekly e-newsletter. We'll have photos and video, of course, of today's event. Then he'll be providing some analysis as well. That comes out in Commercial Real Estate Weekly. That's our weekly product comes out on Wednesdays. Kent will be working on that today. I'd encourage you to sign up for that as well. It's businessrecord.com/sign-up. Again, free product that he works really hard on to put together. And of course, I'd also encourage you, the best story ideas we ever get, how we hear about the different trends and issues that are out there, are always from our audience itself. We're writing for you guys. We're trying to help you do business better. And when you're reaching out to us and letting us know about some of these trends and issues that are coming up, that's how we're able to share it with others, and we can help collectively have a better understanding of how the market is shifting and changing. So feel free to reach out my way or Kent on that. 2 other plugs for upcoming events on May 4th. Lift Iowa, it's our e-newsletter specifically for women in business and women business leaders. We're hosting an event called Sharing the Second Shift. That's going to be on May 4th. Really interesting dynamic, taking a look at how the work at home and some of the things that are going on there, how if we can have a better shared balance of that, can actually result in some better outcomes, not only for mothers, but for fathers and also for business too. So we're going to be taking a good look at that. And then lastly, our Power Breakfast on June 1st. I'm going to talk about, one of the topics we did talk about today was this boomer transition. We're calling it the silver tsunami. That's what the people in the industry are calling it. So we'll be kind of addressing that. There's over 100,000 workers in Iowa over the next 5 years that are going to be planning to retire. At the same time, there's also a larger contingent of people that would have been retiring saying, hey, I'm still in the prime of my career, and I'm working really hard, and I'm going to keep working. I'm not going to get out of it. So it's a really interesting topic. We're really excited about it. Registration is open for both of those on our website. All right, that's enough for me. Time to wind it down. We'll go ahead and start with Jackie down at the end and let her give our final thought.
Well, I feel like it would be remiss for me to not mention the trend of women in commercial real estate. So as many of you know, I'm on the board and affiliated with a group here in Iowa called CRE Iowa. And our national network got together with MIT School of Real Estate and put together a fantastic research study that does show it's a continuing trend. There are more women in commercial real estate. The wage gap is starting to lessen. Some spots on the continuum more than others, but the trend is that companies, both in commercial real estate and outside of commercial real estate, are seeing the value on the bottom line of having a different subset. Women think differently. They bring some diversity to the executive team and to the board and are making a difference on the bottom line. So again, just wanted to have the thought, there are many women in the room, there are women on the panel. This is something that we'll continue to see both in commercial real estate as well as elsewhere.
Gerry?
It's a great time to be in commercial real estate, and it's a spectacular time to be in central Iowa, so it's good to be in commercial real estate in central Iowa.
I similar to Jackie, helped found an organization, Women in Architecture, and again, it addresses some of the gender imbalance in the field of architecture, and so we are making some progress in that area as well, and we've looked at some joint events with CRE. So we appreciate that collaboration immensely, and I think you will find increased quality in your work as you look to these architects, which is really my concluding comment, that the city where we sit is a long-term proposition, and so we need to look at it as what we're doing right now in this spectacular time as a legacy of what 2016, 17, 18 brings. Do it with quality so that we can look back at this period of time with pride as to what we were able to create and do.
Great.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out that silver sound. So now we're talking about it. Really, come on, Chris. Gerry, we're gonna be around forever. I mean,
I'm like the welder.
yeah. Yeah. Plug again for the Water Trails Committee. Our big dam debate discussion is going to be next Tuesday, the 26th at noon at the Central Library, downtown library. I would encourage you to come. It's going to be an exciting presentation and discussion. So hopefully all of you will be there. And if you can really do one thing, the Parade of Homes is this weekend, Chris. I know you've been looking for a new home. Now's the time to buy, okay? Get out there, buy a home. Keep this economy rolling. You know, do your part.
Fun story. I am looking for a house. My wife tried to email a realtor whose name is Rick. She emailed Rick Tollakson. So
I tried to help her out as much as I could.
That wraps up our discussion today. Again, thank you for coming out. Again, my name is Conetzkey, and the annual Real Estate Magazine, make sure to take it with you. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors today. And can I get one final big round of applause for our sponsors?